Sometimes life forces you to pause. Not because you are weak, but because you have been walking in silence for too long. If you are a Capricorn, you are familiar with responsibility. Familiar with carrying the weight. Familiar with not complaining, not explaining, just continuing forward. You know how to endure. You know how to stay steady. But there are rare moments when the noise around you slows down and something deeper inside you begins to ask to be heard. This is not a video meant for entertainment. And it is not a message for everyone. This is a quiet call to the core of who you are, the part of you that has endured long enough, that has tried hard enough, and that is now quietly wondering, where am I really going? Capricorn was never meant to live exhausted by other people's expectations. You carry a mission that is uniquely your own, one that cannot be copied, one that cannot be replaced. And if you are here, listening to these words right now, this is not random. It is because the timing has arrived. So stay with me for a moment. Just a little longer. The first chapter begins here. Capricorn rarely stops to ask whether they are tired. You are used to continuing, used to taking responsibility, used to carrying the heavier side, even when no one asks you to. You work hard. You keep your promises. You do not let go easily. From the outside, everything looks fine, even admirable. But there are very quiet evenings when there is no role left to hold, no one left to prove anything to, and a vague feeling begins to surface. Not quite sadness, not quite boredom, just an emptiness that is hard to name. As if you have gone very far, very correctly, very seriously, yet you are no longer sure where you are actually heading. That feeling does not mean you are weak. It does not mean you are ungrateful for what you have built. It is only a gentle signal, like a soft knock from the inside. Not to accuse, just to remind. Capricorn rarely allows themselves to drift off course. You believe in discipline. You believe in effort. You believe that if you keep going long enough, things will work out. And most of the time, that belief is true. But sometimes, you become so busy that you do not notice how far you have moved from your inner center. Not because you chose wrong, but because you have carried too many things that were never meant to be yours. Expectations, roles, inherited responsibilities, unspoken words, nameless obligations. Capricorn is often admired for endurance, but few people see the cost of that endurance. Few people ask how it feels to always be the strong one, to always stand firm, to be the one who is not allowed to fall. That quiet restlessness is not a call to change everything. It does not demand that you abandon what you have built. It only raises a very slow, very deep question. Does what I am doing still reflect who I truly am? Or am I simply living up to the image the world expects of a Capricorn? What was placed inside you was never a secondary option. What you carry in your heart cannot be replaced by achievements or status. There are parts of you that cannot be filled by work, no matter how meaningful that work may be. And over time, some doors may quietly close, not loudly, not dramatically. You simply no longer feel the need to walk through them. Some voices that once felt familiar begin to fade. Not because you were abandoned, but because you no longer need them to confirm your worth. These moments are often mistaken for loss, but sometimes they are nothing more than a necessary recalibration, like a compass that shifts slightly. You do not throw it away, you gently turn it back toward true north. Capricorn does not need to become someone else. You do not need to tear down what you have built. You do not need to prove anything further. Perhaps what is being invited here is simply greater honesty with yourself. Honesty about your limits. Honesty about what has grown tired. Honesty about the quiet desires you have not allowed yourself to listen to. The world may still need your strength. But you also need strength from within. Not the kind created by pressure, but the kind that comes from alignment between what you do and who you truly are. If this sense of misalignment appears, try seeing it as a gentle visitor at your door, not to frighten you, only to remind you that inside Capricorn, there is still a space that is alive, deeply human, and worthy of care. And perhaps from that listening, a new rhythm will begin to form. Not rushed, not loud, just accurate enough for you to keep moving forward, this time with greater awareness of yourself. Capricorn often grows up with a very familiar belief. To feel at ease, you must be steady. To be steady, you must have a position. And to have a position, you must try a little harder than everyone else. And you did exactly that. You learned to take responsibility early. You learned to set goals. You learned to measure your worth by what you achieved, what you maintained, and what others could see and recognize. Money, titles, social status, they are not bad things. They help life function. They create a sense of safety. And for Capricorn, safety has always mattered. But at some point, you may begin to notice something that is hard to put into words. Even with a new milestone, a new achievement, a new step forward, something inside still feels unfinished. Not empty, but not whole either. As if you are doing everything right, doing everything expected, yet you are no longer sure this is what you are truly living for. Capricorn rarely allows themselves to ask that question, because it feels impractical, because it feels inefficient, because it does not produce immediate results. And yet, the question remains: quiet, patient, waiting for a moment when you are still enough to hear it. Perhaps your true work was never a title. Titles change, roles shift. What is called success today may carry a different name tomorrow. The world is always moving, and its measurements move with it. Perhaps your true work was never money either. Money is a necessary tool, but it was never meant to carry the meaning of a life. It can buy comfort, but not inner alignment. It can solve many problems, but it cannot answer why you wake up each morning. And your true work was never recognition. Recognition can motivate us to continue, but it can also quietly train us to live through the eyes of others. And Capricorn, with your sense of responsibility, sometimes carries expectations that were never yours to begin with. There are things you do very well, not because they truly reflect who you are, but because you know you are capable of doing them. And over time, being capable no longer means being aligned. A life may not be measured by the number of pages in a list of achievements. It may be measured by very small, very quiet moments when you still choose to live in alignment with what you believe matters, even when no one is watching. By the way you keep your word to yourself. By the way you refuse to betray your core values just to make things easier. Capricorn carries a strong inner compass. But that compass only works when you are willing to pause and check direction, instead of only focusing on speed. Your true work, if it can even be called that, may simply be this: to live in a way where what you do on the outside does not contradict what you feel on the inside. To remain honest with yourself, even when that honesty is not rewarded, not applauded, not acknowledged. There are seasons when living truthfully offers no advantage, but it offers a different kind of peace. Not the peace of being ahead of others, but the peace of not performing. If there is still a quiet pull inside you, a gentle but persistent call, it may not be asking you to change everything. It may simply be reminding you that before becoming something in the eyes of the world, you are still a human being who deserves to live truthfully. And perhaps, when Capricorn allows themselves to return to that inner center, every effort that follows will feel lighter. Not because there is less responsibility, but because every step finally carries meaning. Capricorn often believes that you should only move forward when you are fully prepared. Prepared enough, steady enough, strong enough to carry the responsibility of that choice. You are not comfortable walking while things are still unclear. You want to see the road. You want to understand it clearly. You want to know if you step in a different direction, what will be waiting for you ahead. But some callings in life do not arrive after readiness. They arrive before it, very early, and sometimes very inconveniently. You were not called because you were confident, not because you could see the entire picture, not because you were ready to become a more perfect version of yourself. Perhaps you were called simply because it was always there, like a seed already planted, quiet, persistent, waiting for the right moment to wake up. Capricorn often learns confidence through responsibility. You do not trust empty reassurance, you trust experience. And because of that, your confidence usually comes after action, not before it. You understand more once you have walked through things. You grow stronger after you have carried weight, made mistakes, adjusted, and continued. Perhaps that is how you are guided. Not through absolute certainty, but through steps that are real enough to stand on. The divine may not ask you to see the entire path, only to be quiet enough to hear the next step. Not far, not big, just a step that fits where you are right now. Capricorn can be very hard on themselves. One small mistake can make you question your entire direction. One old pattern returning can make you believe you were wrong from the beginning. But those mistakes do not necessarily cancel what you were called toward. Those returns do not erase what you have already learned. Sometimes, they are simply part of a clarifying process. Clarifying your limits, clarifying your motives, clarifying what truly matters to you, not just what you are good at. Capricorn does not quit easily, but you can become tired. And when you are tired, it is easy to believe you have wandered too far from what is right, when in truth, you may simply be in the middle of a journey that has not yet been named. If you are still breathing, that may not be random existence. It may be a very quiet permission. Permission to keep learning. Permission to adjust. Permission to move more slowly, without having to turn back. Not every calling comes with immediate clarity. Some callings only reveal themselves once you have walked close enough. Close enough to experience. Close enough to be tired of chasing an old image of yourself. Capricorn often believes you must be strong before you are given more. But sometimes, being given more is what makes you strong. You do not need to be certain that you will do everything right. You only need enough honesty to not turn away from what keeps knocking inside you. Understanding can arrive while you are moving, not while you stand still analyzing, not while you wait for a perfect sign. And perhaps what is being asked of you now is not a big decision, just a very small willingness, a willingness to listen, a willingness to admit you do not know everything, a willingness to continue, even without the certainty you once had. Capricorn was not called to become perfect. Perhaps you were called to become more real with yourself, one step at a time. And within that truth, the path will slowly appear. Not all at once, just enough to keep you from standing still. Capricorn does not usually compare on purpose. You are not the type to look sideways just to compete. But you do look to wonder. How far have they gone? Why do they seem lighter? Why, within the same stretch of life, some people appear settled, while you are still carrying steep climbs? That comparison is not loud. It is very quiet. It shows up in ordinary moments. When you scroll past a success story, when you hear someone talk about a turning point, when you see others who seem to have found their place. And then, the familiar questions arrive. Am I moving too slowly? Did I choose the wrong path? Did I miss something important? Capricorn was born with a very specific rhythm. You do not burst forward. You do not rush. You move through endurance, through layers of accumulation, through steps that are not immediately visible. And because of that, it is easy to forget that your path was never designed to look like anyone else's. When you place your journey next to someone else's, you are not only comparing speed, you are comparing things that were never meant to be the same. Comparison can quietly interrupt the delicate intimacy between you and your deepest inner self. It makes you doubt your natural pace. It trains you to live by milestones you never truly chose. Capricorn carries a very different way of loving. You do not love quickly. You love through presence, through staying, through not leaving when things become difficult. You also carry a very different way of healing, not loudly, not dramatically, but by quietly facing the unfinished parts of yourself again and again. And you show up in your own way. You do not need to take up space. You do not need to be seen immediately. Yet you are steady enough for others to lean on. When comparison appears, you may begin to believe that the pain you carry means you have been left behind. But pain does not always mean that. Often, it is simply a season preparing you for responsibilities you are not meant to carry yet. Years of emptiness are not always punishment. Sometimes they are space. Space to learn how to stand without validation. Deep wounds are not always mistakes. Sometimes they are teaching you how to understand others with humility and compassion. Capricorn rarely cries in front of others. But tears that never fall still carry meaning. No emotion is wasted just because it is unseen. No waiting season is completely meaningless, even when, from the inside, everything feels unclear. Comparison makes you view your journey through someone else's eyes, and when you do that, it becomes easy to forget that the hardest roads are the ones that shaped your depth. The roads you walked alone, without applause, without a clear map. Capricorn was not born to copy an existing path. If you walk exactly like someone else, you may arrive at the same place. But you will miss becoming yourself. Perhaps what is being invited here is not to stop looking outward, but to look inward a little more often. To look back at what you have walked through. To look back at what you have endured. To notice how you kept going, even when you were not sure where you were heading. When you allow yourself to stop comparing, not because you are better or worse than anyone else, but because you understand this path is singular, a different kind of calm appears. Not certainty, but acceptance. And from that acceptance, you can continue walking. Not faster, not slower, just in rhythm with yourself. There is a very quiet moment when the big questions slowly fall away and what remains no longer feels as complicated as we once believed. Not because all the answers have arrived, but because something simple becomes clearer inside. What comes next does not have to be big. It only has to be right. For Capricorn, this may sound unfamiliar. You are used to long-term plans, used to distant horizons, used to knowing what you are building 5 years, 10 years into the future. But there are seasons when the only real work is not building more, but walking with the sacred presence within yourself, each day, with honesty. Not rushing forward out of fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear of moving slower than others. Fear that if you loosen your grip, everything will slip away. And not standing still out of safety. Out of familiarity. Out of having invested too much to turn back. Out of fear that change will cost you what you have already secured. Between those two extremes, there is a very quiet path. The path of presence. No rushing, no avoiding. Just staying with yourself long enough to recognize the rhythm that fits this moment. Capricorn does not need to borrow someone else's vision to know whether you are right or wrong. Those maps can be helpful, but they do not always match your terrain. You carry a very distinct inner structure, a way of moving forward that is steady and enduring. And sometimes the most sustainable choice is not moving faster, but refusing to step away from your center. Your only work, if it can be called that, does not ask you to do more. It simply invites you to trust a little deeper, to trust that not everything needs to be controlled. To trust that very small steps, almost unnoticeable, can still keep you within the flow. Listening is part of that work as well. Not listening to every voice around you, but learning to recognize which voice brings you calm, even when it promises nothing specific. Listening to the feeling when a choice feels lighter, even if it does not guarantee results right away. And following one small step at a time. Not obedience in a rigid sense, but a willingness to move toward what feels true to you, even when it is not widely supported. Even when it offers no obvious advantage. Even when it simply means holding a value instead of chasing an opportunity. Capricorn was not called to blend in. You were not born to disappear into the crowd. Not by standing out loudly, but by carrying your own steady light. That light does not need explanation. It does not need persuasion. It shows in how you show up, in how you keep your word, in how you refuse to trade what matters most for convenience. There are rooms that shift when you enter, not because you speak often, but because you carry steadiness. There are people who feel calmer around you, even when you are not trying to do anything special. That is not accidental. It is the result of having lived with honesty for a long time. If you ever wonder whether you are falling behind, the answer may not need to be clear right away. It may simply be that you are not behind at all, only walking a road with fewer signposts. If there are moments when you feel lost, you may simply be standing where an old map no longer applies. And perhaps, where you are now is not the wrong place. It may be the exact place where you are meant to meet the deepest part of yourself. A place where you do not need to prove, where you do not need to rush, where you do not need to become anyone else. Capricorn does not need to do more to be worthy. Perhaps what is needed now is simply to keep walking. Slow enough to listen. True enough to stay aligned with yourself. And in that simplicity, the path will continue to open, one step at a time, in rhythm with who you are,